What's up, fellow Go Givers? JuJuan Buford, founder of the Go Givers Project and JSB Business Solutions Group today. And you have to bear with me a little bit because I'm not working off a script, right? Just have a couple words outlined. And so I may go off the rails once, maybe twice, but I am determined to make this a small plate and keep it to under 5 minutes. But what I want to talk about today is plateaus and progress. And what am I talking about here? Well, if you're an entrepreneur and you've been doing it for a while, right, and you're earning revenue, you're earning income, inevitably you reach a plateau. You hit a ceiling, if you will, right? And when I think about the ceiling in entrepreneurship across industries, regardless of what you're doing, I still look at the ceiling as about 100K, right? Simply because there's such a small number of individuals at the end of the day that earn 100K, whether you're W-2 or 1099, right? The average small business owner, I think last time I looked, across the board, is earning about $60,000 a year, maybe 70, right? And people who earn W-2s are typically, on average, earning, $10,000 less. Now, that was a couple of years ago. A lot's changed in the economy, but I don't think things have changed fundamentally that much, right? And so if you are earning 100K plus per year as an entrepreneur, are you elite? No. But are you well above average? Better believe it, right? And I think in the YouTube and Facebook and, social media world, excuse me, our perspectives, haven't had my water yet this morning, could get a bit twisted. All right, so here's the thing. And the reason why it's difficult, oftentimes for people to even get to 100K, the reason why it's difficult for people to get beyond 100K and start moving to the elite, where as an entrepreneur, you're earning $250, $500 million a year, I think it boils down to one simple thing. And that is people are oftentimes unwilling to pay the price to achieve mastery. Because here's the thing, if you have a good work ethic and a good product and a good service, a reasonable degree of intellect, you don't have to be Einstein, just smart enough, you can get to 100K. I've seen it happen. I've experienced it myself. I know what it is. You can get to 100K in revenues in your business if you just have work ethic and a willingness just to get after it, right? And just make adjustments, plan, do, review. You can get there. But mastery is something altogether different, right? To achieve mastery, you have to be willing to be humble. You have to really, really, really be willing to be a learner. You have to really be willing to perfect your craft, right? I think about this all the time. There was a quote I read a while back ago, and I'm trying to remember which book it was, but it kind of inspired me to write this. But it basically indicated that people oftentimes want your outcome when you're successful. Or if you're not successful, you want successful people's outcome. But the bottom line is you want to do it your way. You don't want to do it their way. You think you're the special. You think you are especially talented or especially skilled or especially deserved, right? You think that God answers only your prayers and no one else's. So you think you're the special. And so you don't want to pay the price. You want to do it your way. You don't want to, but here's the thing, when you walk into a grocery store oftentimes, or you walk into a shoe store and you want the pair of shoes, you have to pay the price for those shoes. You cannot not pay the price for the shoes. You don't get to pay the price that you want, and you have to make a decision to pay the price, or you just don't, and then you don't get the shoes, right? And business is much the same way. There's a price that has to be paid to achieve mastery. What's the difference between an athlete that earns $1 million or $2 million versus an athlete that earns $20 million a year, right? And 9 times out of 10, if you listen to the greats, if you listen to Michael Jordan, if you listen to anything that Kobe Bryant talked about, it was an extra time in the gym. They got in the gym 2 hours earlier for everyone else. They studied their opponents meticulously. If you listen in football, if you listen to Ray Lewis talk about what's the difference between him and everyone else. Yeah, he brought the physicality, but he spent more time watching the tape. He spent more time studying his opponents, right? If you listen to anyone who's achieved at a really high level, you'll find, and this is the same in business. I mean, relatively speaking, everyone brings the same amount of talent to the table. I'm sorry. I mean, every now and again, you're going to have an outlier, right? And it is what it is. But at the end of the day, most of us bring the same level of skill and talent to the table. We really do. So you're not the special. Most of us are not the special. I'm not the special. Because it's a level playing field. And so most of us can get to a certain degree of success. But what separates those individuals who are special? What separates people who do achieve extraordinary results? Well, the separation is the people who are willing to do extraordinary things, go beyond the ordinary. And if you're looking to achieve success, that's what you're going to have to do. I remember when I was launching my PWSI business years ago, and I remember I kept plateauing at executive director. I kept plateauing, which is just a position with the company that means you're on the other side of money. Let's put it that way. You actually become a CEO in a sense. You learn how to create environments of opportunity for others, right? But I won't do too much of a deep dive in there. It's beyond the point. But the bottom line is I had plateaued. And I plateaued in my understanding. I was plateauing in my results. And it became frustrating. And I remember there was a website that had a series of trainings on it, going back, I think, 2-3 years, where the organization had been repeatedly doing these weekly conference calls. And the conference calls would last 30 minutes. Sometimes it would last an hour. Sometimes it would last 2 hours. And what was obvious to me is this organization had been paid, not millions, not tens of millions, but hundreds of millions of dollars have been paid to their teammates. Grand Rising, Ms. Leslie Palmer. And I said to myself, if I want their success, I got to find out what they did. I didn't sit down and inspect the roots, right? Because while some of you are spending so much time expecting the roots, other people are picking the fruit. Their success was self-evident. There was no need for me to spend time trying to tear them down, tear them apart, or trying to figure out a way to, take a shortcut. I was like, I just want to know what they did. After I know what they did and I execute upon what they've done, then if I want to put my special salsa on it, if you will, I'll do that, right? And I remember every day, like an hour a day, for a period of 2 months, I studied that content. So yeah, I was literally going through weeks and weeks. I was collapsing timetables and going through weeks and weeks and weeks of content. I started reading books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in 2 to 3 months, I remember I sprinted past my competition. It just became obvious in the marketplace where I was working that I was just smarter, that I was more effective, I was more able, that I just moved with different vibration. I remember those days vividly. Whenever I need to do a hard reset, that's exactly what I do. I find people who are far more successful than me, or at least more advanced than me, man, and I study them. I study everything they do, not just the words they're saying. I study the way they attire themselves. I study the way they interact with people. I study the way they articulate themselves. I study to the extent that I can. If I can have lunch with them, if I can have a conversation with them. I'm not so much interested in what they're saying all the time. I want to know why they're saying it. Like, I study them. And I'm not so prideful not to say that I eat the fruit and I spit out the seed. There are probably things that they're doing that I may not have their skill set or talent set that I'm unable to do. That's okay. The things I am able to do, I will do, right? I will adopt whatever it is they're doing that's working for them, right? And it's just willingness to go the extra mile. I've dedicated for the next 6 months, from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., I'm going to be either reading, writing, or creating content. It's going to be one or the other, but I'm going to be learning. I love creating content, not because I'm looking for likes and popularity, but it makes me ready, right? If I'm ready, I have to get ready and make sure that I'm prepared, right? Because I'm not going to come here and just, BS with you, right? So that means I need to be learning. I need to have something to give, right? So I love this. And that's going to be part of my process of sharpening the saw, at becoming elite at what it is that I do, right? I've made up my mind that I already have a list of books that I'm going to be consuming over the next 6 months. I know what those books are already. There may be a couple added here and there, but I know what I will be reading, right? So it's being willing to go, once again, that extra mile and achieve mastery. You know, the difference between earning 100,000 and $1 million really is this small. It is this small. But that little small gap in between is that extra mile that most people aren't willing to go. It really is. It's just being more consistent, being more obsessed, being more unabashedly committed to everyone else, and just be willing to learn just a little bit more than everyone else. Being more aware, just a little bit more aware than everyone else. It's not a big difference, but so few people are willing to pay the price to achieve mastery. And so if you've hit a plateau, that does not mean that it's time for you to quit. Usually what it means is it's time for you to get serious about your craft. It means you need to give time for things to snowball. Snowflakes turn into snowball. It means you need to figure out what is that one small thing. What's that tiny gap between where you're at and where you want to be? And you take laser focus on it, right? You don't stop doing the things that brought you where you're at, right? Sometimes you start having so much success that you throw away the things that got you there, right? Be savage about that and making sure that whatever it is that got you to the point where you're at, whatever those KPIs, those RGAs are, but if you need to adopt new habits to get to the next space, to get to the next level, to achieve that mastery, you do that too, right? So, man, there was like 4 or 5 other thoughts I was having as I was sharing this. But, yes, Ms. Palmer, entrepreneurship is skill trade. It's skill trade. Just like an athlete, just like a carpenter, just like a plumber, just like anyone who becomes very elite at what it is they do, they eventually learn to respect that it's skill trade. And you just can't half-ass stuff, right? So many people try to halfway do things. And once again, you can bump your head and have success halfway doing things, but the people who are achieving real success, it's not a game, it's not a gimmick, it's not a special formula. You know, every now and again that may happen, but for most people, that's not what it is. They are just going the extra mile. They're going the extra commitment. They're coming early. They're leaving late. They're showing up for themselves. So anyway, yeah, before I go on another tangent, I said I was going to keep this quick. I celebrate success in advance. Goodbye for now.